Okay, guys, welcome to Bridges in Tech, our happy hour that meets every Wednesday at 6 p.m. We are a tech community for women of color. We provide the resources and support that's needed to help people succeed in their tech careers. Of course, as I mentioned every week, allies are welcome. Doesn't matter what race, gender, or background you come from. Everyone is welcome. Please say hi in the chat and introduce yourselves. Drop your LinkedIn and connect with each other. And for anybody who's new, feel free to reach out to anyone who drops their links in the chat. So many people here are willing to help you. And the resources link in the bottom right-hand corner includes presentations from previous happy hours and any like PDFs, links, or resources that people drop in the chat that we've compiled at that link for you. Bridges in Tech is composed of Joanna, who's our president, me, my name is C.Y.B.E.R, I'm your vice president, and Gina King is our program manager. And for the next couple of weeks or months, we have Morgan doing our emails for us. Thank you, Morgan. As always, message me or Joanna on LinkedIn or at the Bridges in Tech email and let us know what topic or speaker you'd like to see in the future. And today we have, can you guys hear me? Did I freeze?
We can hear you.
Okay, we have the BrownSTEM founders, Alma and Michellea. Did I say that? Michellea, sorry. Alma and Michellea, and we're going to be helping them. We're giving them feedback on the project that they've been working on. But just to reinforce this one point one more time, please introduce yourselves in the chat, especially if you're new. We want to know who you are, how you got here, and anything else you want to share with us. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much, Joanna. Thank you, Mara, and thank you everyone for being here. So as some of you might know me, I'm Alma Rinasz, and today I'm here with Michellea Millis, who is my co-founder with a really interesting educational program called BrownSTEM. And BrownSTEM is STEM, excuse the typo, education for BIPOC students. And we are going to basically talk about the following things today. Who we are, what and why, what is BrownSTEM and why, and where BrownSTEM is today. So I will let Michellea introduce herself. And how about you take it away, Michellea?
Okay, great. So greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Michellea Millis. I am the founder and CEO, of course, with Alma for BrownSTEM, where we create innovative schools for college, career, and military readiness with a STEM focus, and that stands for science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine, and underrepresented communities. I have 21 years in education. Currently, I am an adjunct professor and an education consultant, where pretty much everything is focused on in that consulting, teacher and leadership effectiveness, building equitable cultures, and working towards getting more BIPOC underrepresented communities services that they need. And so with BrownSTEM, this has been a research program, actually research model for about 4 years, specifically with the demographics of a community in San Antonio, the East Side, which is respectively about 60% Latinx and 40% African American. And so, in case it is not known of this group, but there is a huge disparity gap for BIPOC and women in STEM careers, and BrownSTEM is looking to narrow that national disparity gap by creating a replicable model to increase women and BIPOC in the STEM careers.
She is sleepy.
All right. No? Hello? Can you hear me?
Alma, I couldn't hear you. Do you want me to
Sorry.
talk about the design team, or did you want to speak and know where you're going to go?
If you want to talk about the design team, because basically Michellea is the one who put together the design team. So do you want to tell us about the design team, Michellea?
Yes, so the design team is actually made up of community-based organizations, industry professionals, and also some folks that have just been with me from the beginning of this concept. So Alma is part of the design team. We also have the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology as part of it. We also have folks from the Texas Cyber Foundation. We have someone who has been with Region 20. Now they've gone off and doing some other things. We have community-based persons, and we also have other folks who have nonprofit administration experience as part of our design team to create this teaching hospital model. And one of the things I want to say that was really important is that I wanted the design team to be able to think about what are their biases for education. As I realized just this past year, probably because I had a lot of time more than ever to think about during COVID, is as I was designing this in isolation, I just started this year to really begin to incorporate other folks into the design. I realized as I was being pushed back on some things that I was building this from a place of my biases. So actually I did some empathy interviews last year with the pilot we did, and actually began to now make this experience more inclusive of what students need, parents needs, and community needs as far as the future of education and creating diverse, equitable learning spaces.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are at right now with our design so far. So BrownSTEM, in essence, will be a college, a school for 6th through 12th grade, where we will be offering college credit, industry certifications, and leadership skills that students will be able to get through the school. And the objective of that is to make them ready for the jobs in the 22nd century. And so our learning is project-based, it's gamified, it's experiential, and as we mentioned earlier, it's STEM-focused. Now, the first school, the flagship school, is actually going to be focused on cybersecurity in San Antonio, and that is the reason why I thought it was so important to get feedback from the people on this call, because we have so many people who are either in the security space or in the tech space and are and different parts of or different phases of their careers. So right now, what BrownSTEM looks like is actually this program called C.Y.B.E.R LAB. And C.Y.B.E.R LAB is actually an acronym that is this community-based youth building engagement and restoration lab. This is a really interesting program that Michellea was able to submit for a grant, and we are hopefully going to be starting next week or within the next coming weeks. And I will turn it back over to her so she can talk to us a little bit more about C.Y.B.E.R LAB.
So thank you, Alma. So C.Y.B.E.R Lab actually is a continuation of the pilot I did last year. I actually was in Florida last year for some family stuff, came back to Texas. But while I was there, I was in a position where I was actually working with 10 middle schoolers and 10 high schoolers to pilot parts of the vision of the early college model we want for BrownSTEM. So we did an after school program called C.Y.B.E.R Lab twice a week for an hour and a half. With COVID, we pivoted to virtual C.Y.B.E.R Lab. And from that, we got a lot of data that I created some tools to see engagement, some academic outcomes. From that, one of the things that I saw is that actually doing it virtually was better for students because we can make it asynchronous. Sometimes after school, they had multiple commitments, multiple clubs, go home early. But if we made it virtual and asynchronous, they can do it within their own time. And so we were very fortunate to get a small grant for programs that are trying to continue in light of COVID. And so I came up with C.Y.B.E.R Lab, Community-Based Youth Building Engagement and Restoration Lab, which is a combination of programmatic elements that are centered in STEM. So for example, we're gonna do a all-girls middle school BIPOC cyber patriot team that has never been done in that community. We're going to be doing a cyber leadership cadre where the high school students will actually be able to reach back to the middle school students because that's a gap in the community. Although they have a cyber P-Tech school, they have not reached to the middle school students to be able to have them begin interest to then filter that into the high school. So this program, which is set to start next week, will continue all year. Next year, we're going to be getting an outside evaluator to evaluate the success of the program and to be able to get testimonials from students, and also for continuous improvement as we still refine our model for the actual learning space school that we're working on.
And one thing I'd like to add that I should have mentioned in the previous slide is part of the project is, apart from having the 6th to 12th grade school, there will also be a B-Corps that will allow students to get that entry-level experience when they're still in school and also as recent graduates. And an important part of that B-Corps is actually having local partnerships and sponsorships. And so moving forward for 2020, we'll be doing C.Y.B.E.R Lab. And then in 2021, we're slated to hopefully get our charter, our STEM charter. And 2022, we'll begin with the recruiting and hiring of our staff. And for 2023, we are slated to launch. So these are essentially our next steps and goals. And we're also looking to build partnerships and just create more of a network within the tech community, and in particular, the cybersecurity and the information security community. And so we would like to know if anyone here is interested in getting involved. If so, you know where to reach me. And this is also our information, Michelea's information. This is the email that she has access to, and we actually have a website that is our working website right now, though we will be very soon, we'll be changing the look and feel of the website. But the idea today was just to get some validation from the community, the security community, and from professionals who work in the space, in the tech space. So I will now leave it open to any questions, comments that any of you might have.
I put a question in the chat, but you may have missed it, which is totally fine. I just kind of wanted to know, how did you do the research to figure out what your community needed? I'm sure that you talked to parents, but did you do surveys or contact some after-school programs to ask, hey, do you have students who are interested in the STEM fields? And do you have a plan in place to help them? And if so, can we help them with BrownSTEM?
So great question. Thank you for asking. This is probably the 4th year of research. Initially, it started with the then mayor of San Antonio, which she was actually the first woman and the first African-American woman mayor of San Antonio, Mayor Ivy Taylor, who visited a school that I was actually an instructional coach at, and she talked about the jobs that will be available specifically in cybersecurity, because in case folks don't know, San Antonio is second to DC in cybersecurity. And so the students were kind of surprised at that. You talked about how these jobs don't necessarily need degrees and the salaries and how fun and engaging. So my students were actually super excited about it as we went back to our classroom to talk about it. However, I started to think about, first of all, no school existed like that, and to some extent it still doesn't. And secondly, how would students of color, after I had looked at some preliminary research about students, about persons of color and women in STEM, are very underrepresented nationally. So how do we build a model that's going to incorporate their needs, their challenges, and what's going to be able to give them the best role? So with that, I've got lots of research on some of the barriers, challenges. I did empathy interviews. Somebody in the chat asked what they were. So empathy interviews are done to the actual, what we call the community affected, so parents and students. I actually interviewed them and asked them, what are your interests? What are your needs? When you think about school, what do you think it should look like, feel like? What are some of the challenges and barriers as a student of color that you face? What are some of your long-term goals? Sometimes when we're creating things, we leave students out. And then when we create them, we're like, how come they don't like it? Because we didn't ask them. So my thing was, when I was doing those interviews, I had a lot of ideas about what I thought students want, having worked with Title I students for 21 years. However, there were some things that they said that I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of that. Same thing with the parents. So yeah, there was a lot of research done with that. And also, I lived in the community, so I'm very familiar with a lot of the barriers and challenges myself, as well as talking to the faith-based, the military, which we have a huge military structure and infrastructure here. And so, in the industry, higher education. And so basically talking to the folks to come up with a composite of research about what really are the needs for BrownSTEM and the students that we will be serving in that community.
Great, that's really interesting. I didn't know that San Antonio was a cybersecurity hub either until right now.
Yeah, well, please spread the word, because we are second to DC. That is a proven point.